Jiminy Crickets!
I'm the guy they call Little Mickey Mouse. Got a sweetie down in the chicken house. Neither fat nor skinny, she's the horse's. Winnie is my little Minnie Mouse. When it's feeding time for the animals, and they howl and growl like the cannibals, I just turn my heel to the hen house deal, and you'll hear me sing this song. I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the rooster's cock-a-doodle-doo. With the cows and the chickens, they all sound like the dickens when I hear my little Minnie.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another mini episode. We weren't sure what we were going to call these originally, these unedited, somewhat shorter episodes. But we kind of decided to call them mini episodes. And so this is our third mini episode. And we're continuing our discussion on Epcot, or on Walt Disney World. Again, unedited, so there was a little mistake that you heard me saying Epcot instead of Walt Disney World. We're leaving that in. Anyway, we left off with the Magic Kingdom on our last episode, so today we're going to start talking about Epcot Center, or I call it Epcot Center. I guess it's no longer a center anymore. It's just Epcot. But, boy, has that place changed quite a bit since the last time I went. Not much has changed as far as being on the outside, looking in, but when it comes to the attractions, there's very little that was there the last time I went. I think there's only one attraction in the entire park that is exactly the same as the last time I went. Even attractions that were there have changed. So I have a lot to talk about when it comes to Epcot. Ruth recently went to Epcot too, and we did a episode a couple months ago for Epcot's 35th anniversary. Was it 35th? Yeah. 35th. And so we kind of she and I dug into the history of what Epcot was like when it first opened and its first few years of being open. So having done the research for that, both of us kind of looked at Epcot in sort of a different way. I mean, more so Ruth than me, because I actually had experienced Epcot when it was still really new, so I kind of lived through all that, so I was already aware of it. But Ruth really looked at it differently than me. But I definitely have a lot to say, and if Ruth wants to chime in on anything, she's allowed to interrupt me. I gave her permission this time. Just this time.
Woohoo!
So, let's start with the entrance to Epcot. I think one thing I haven't mentioned before is the whole security thing when it comes to the parks now. Because the last time I went, there was no bag check. There was no metal detectors. There was no security. Basically, you just bought a ticket, went in. You didn't have to... I mean, sometimes they might look in your bag, but it was more like because they felt it might have some alcohol in it more than anything else. That was really their major concern back in the 90s, was somebody sneaking alcohol in. My, has the world changed.
Right.
But I mean, I'm glad and I understand the reasons for having bag checks and everything today. But I think out of every park that it really kind of made me feel different about entering the park, the one that it really seemed to affect the most was Epcot. Because they have now, there was, it always had, this big open area in front of the turnstiles where you buy your tickets and go through the turnstiles, and now it's all gated off. So you can't even go to that area in front of the ticket booths and whatnot unless you go through the security check. And so I just noticed a lot of gates. I mean, they were well themed and everything, but they weren't there before. That area was just totally accessible. So that stood out to me, more so than any other park. I mean, especially because the Magic Kingdom, that's all located at the Ticket and Transportation Center, unless you're taking the bus there, in which case it's off to the side. It's nowhere near the entrance. The entrance to the Magic Kingdom is still broad and open like it always was. But I really noticed it at Epcot, and it kind of ruined it. The whole entering, seeing the big spaceship Earth, it just wasn't as magical when you're like being strip searched. So, anyway, that being said, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the new, I guess it's not rock work. It's like a sort of a design that sort of looks like rocks, but they're in geometric shapes. It's where they put all the names of all the people that like bought a place to put their name in it, you know. But the thing is, they're not all filled up. They stopped doing it before they even filled them all up, so half of them are empty, so it looks weird that there's only names on part of them. And I don't know, I don't like the look of it. It's kind of ugly. And the color scheme doesn't match. Like, everything else is silver and blue, and these are like kind of a rust brown color. It just clashes. I think it's one of the remnants from that whole late 90s, kind of early 2000s, like trying to make everything look steampunk.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't work when you put steampunk in front of Spaceship Earth, because it's a clashing. Spaceship Earth is futuristic, but it's not like the 1800s being futuristic, you know what I mean? It just doesn't, it's a clashing of ideas and themes, and it's kind of confused. That being said, and before I get into Epcot, I guess this is sort of related, because it's the contemporary. One thing I forgot to mention last show was how the new Disney Vacation Club tower that they added to the contemporary, it completely ruined that whole visual. That tower is so ugly. I mean, it's on its own, it's not an ugly tower, but next to the beautiful A-frame contemporary, it just takes away so much from that structure. I mean, like when you're riding on the Autopia, or I guess the Tomorrowland Speedway, you used to be able to see the contemporary from there, and it looked like it was part of the scenery of the raceway, and it looked futuristic and everything. But now that you have just like a generic hotel tower next to it, it completely takes away from that. And the way the monorail would flow in and out of it, when you have another big building behind it, it just takes away from the dramatic visual of that. So I just thought I'd bring that up. I knew that was a problem because I have seen photographs of it and everything. But seeing it in person, I had no idea just how bad it was. It's even worse when you're looking at it from Bay Lake and from the Seven Seas Lagoon. I mean, it's just completely ruined the whole visual of the contemporary. It's really upsetting that they just stuck another tower there without even considering that it would ruin that whole look. But, I mean, is it just me? Because I haven't heard that many complaints about it. I mean, did you feel that way, Ruth?
Well, I didn't really know what it looked like much before, but it definitely doesn't go with the aesthetic of the contemporary.
Yeah. I mean, at least they could have tried to match the same design.
Right.
But anyway, I forgot to mention that in last week's show, so I thought I'd bring it up, just so you know how I feel about that, everybody. But, alright, let's get back to Epcot. So, Spaceship Earth has changed quite a bit since the last time I wrote it. The last time I wrote it was Jeremy Irons was still the narrator, and the whole second half of it has completely changed. I mean, there's a new narrator, of course, throughout the whole thing, but the basic show elements and scenery and audio animatronics are pretty much exactly the same as they were the last time I wrote it. The opening scene is a little bit different because they use more, digital technology to show the march of time when you're going up the big rise. They used to have more like movie screen projections and stuff there, and now it's more digital projections, so it's a little more, I don't know, sleek, I guess. That didn't really bother me. But I liked Dame Judi Dench. I thought she did fine. I mean, I've heard her narration before, but I thought it was nice to hear her going through it. It didn't bother me. I did notice that they sort of updated the Roman scene where they used to have like this projection of a chariot going down a road, and now they got rid of that. And it never, I mean, even in the 80s, it looked stupid. It looked fake. So I'm glad they actually got rid of that. Now they just have a three-dimensional horse with a chariot, just like they placed that in front of that backdrop instead. I think that's much better. So everything basically after the scene where you pass the radio station has changed. Everything from that point on. One other thing I noticed is for some reason they have the newspaper boy moved and with his back to you. He used to be prominent and up in the front. I'm wondering if it has something to do with he's black. He's like a black little boy. Are they like ashamed that they're putting like a black boy as a newspaper boy? I don't think there's any racial connotations with being a newspaper boy, so I don't quite understand. I don't have a problem whether he's black or white. Who cares? It's not offensive.
Yeah.
There's nothing offensive about it.
Walt was a newspaper boy, so...
Yeah, I mean, it'd be different if he was a shoe shine boy or something, but there's no, like, racial stereotyping with newspaper boys. In fact, I don't even think of black little boys back then being newspaper boys, but I guess they must have been, but it's not something that is a stereotype or anything racial about it. But anyway, that being said, that was a little weird. Anyway, the television scene where they're watching the moon landing, the whole computer room with the go-go boot girl, that, with the afro, and the Bill Gates garage scene, and all that was new. None of that was there before. And it was really nicely done because it really matched the aesthetic of the rest of the attraction. The original ending of Spaceship Earth, they had this huge like telecommunications board, and they had animatronic characters like sitting in front of it like they were telecommunication operators or whatever, and that was kind of the last scene. Then in the 90s they kind of added a bunch of scenes that were not as high quality as the rest of the attraction. So when you went from the beginning of the attraction to that final part, like one of the scenes showed a little girl in, I guess, Japan sitting at her computer, and then there was across, it looked like they were talking from across the world. She was talking to a boy in America on the computer. Like, that was a big deal in the 90s to be able to do that. So, because that was kind of a new thing to be able to talk on your computer like that. So that they didn't move, the figures didn't move, and they almost looked plastic, and it didn't match the rest of it. But the new scenes that they added, they looked like they were designed at the exact same time as the rest of the attraction. They did a really good job on that, and I had no idea how good it was until I saw it with my own eyes. If you had not been on that attraction before, you wouldn't even know that those were added later. You would think that was part of the original attraction. So I was really impressed with that. One thing I was not impressed with was after you see the big floating spaceship Earth in the sky and you leave that room, and then it says, "Attention, you are turning backwards." That's always been there. I don't understand are people so freaked out that they're turning backwards they have to like all you hear in that room is, "Attention, your vehicle is now turning backwards. Attention, your vehicle is now over and over." That's all you hear in that room. So anyways, that's always been there. But anyway, so everything after that is completely like with a few exceptions, with some lighting effects and things, there's nothing to see in that whole segment. It's just blank walls. And you're supposed to, I guess, look at your computer monitor on your vehicle. Those are new. They never had that there the last time. There was no computers on your vehicle the last time I rode it. So you're playing a little video game while you're in the ride going back down to and it's very silly and goofy, and it doesn't match. And I mean, I already knew that was going to be the case because I was well aware of what this was going to be going into it. So it was pretty much just confirmed what I already thought to be the case, that it's a shame that they end it that way. Such a dramatic beginning and then kind of a dumb, stupid ending to it.
Yeah.
That needs to be changed. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was as wonderful as it always is, and I really loved the new additions up to the ending where you're playing on the computer.
Yeah.
Which you can just do at home. I don't know.
Right.
What's the big deal? I mean, Snapchat does better face recognition than that.
That's true.
Anyways, I kind of went around that little room that they let you out, and when you get out, it has like some interactive things you could do. I played one of the games in there because there just happened to be nobody, because everything was always like there's already somebody using it, but there was just this one out of the way where nobody was using it, and I can't even remember what I did on it, but it was some kind of a game where you had to drive a car or something. It was some kind of a driving thing. I don't even know what it had anything to do with Spaceship Earth. I'm not sure, but I just kind of did that because I was there and nobody was sitting there, and I figured, why not? So anyway, Spaceship Earth, you can't go wrong. I mean, it definitely could use some changes to the ending. I mean, how did you feel about that? You're not as familiar, you haven't seen as many versions of it, so did you feel like the ending was kind of a letdown, or?
Well, I did, because I had been on it one other time. I don't remember the whole area where you kind of went backwards and that you were just looking up at these lights. So I don't know exactly when they added that section.
That's always been there, originally it had a whole musical number that you would listen to, like Tomorrow's Child. And you've heard that song, right? Yeah. And that you would hear that as you were making your backwards descent to the loading area. And they had screens all around you with children dancing and singing, and that was the ending. It was kind of a musical ending, and it was kind of a hopeful message for tomorrow. And then when it was the Jeremy Irons version, they had all sorts of things to look at, all these like fiber optic effects and just all sorts of different displays and things going down. But it was a little cheesy because it wasn't as high quality as the rest of the attraction, but at least they made an attempt to do something interesting with that space. Now it's just nothing is there. I mean, did you notice how it was just nothing?
Yeah, I did. And you were supposed to be focusing on your screen.
Yeah.
And, doing your little quiz. What kind of world do you want to live in the future?
I want to live in a world where I don't have to stare at a computer screen and look at the real world around me.
Right.
That's my dream for the future. Anyway, that'll never happen at this point.
Right.
So anyway, Spaceship Earth. Let's talk about like some of before we get into like the two side areas of Future World. Let's kind of talk about the stuff in the middle, because I did kind of experience some of that. I feel like, first of all, one thing I noticed is the Fountain of Nations. It used to be called, I guess it's still called, the Fountain of Nations. It was not as, it was just flat on the top and just water running down the sides of it. It used to have big chutes of water in the middle, and then every 15 minutes or so, the music would come up, and they'd have a big water explosion, a big show there, and that never happened once while I was there.
Really?
Did it happen when you were there?
It did. Yeah, because we were actually sitting across from it outside of that Starbucks there.
Yeah.
Like one evening, well, the one time I went there, the evening, and we were watching it.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed
I
it.
never
Yeah.
noticed it at all. And I did notice they had some like live stuff going on in front of it. Maybe because they had set up a staging area there. They weren't using it because they didn't want to get the staging area wet because they were doing some. They had like some contortionist or something. This girl and boy like doing contortionist stuff up there at one point, which I watched for like a minute and I was all set. And I moved on. I thought it was kind of silly.
I mean, they had a stage there when we were there too, because they had like a gospel choir that was singing, for the holidays.
So that couldn't have been it.
Right.
I don't know why they weren't running it. Maybe it needs maintenance. I don't know.
Maybe, or they were trying to save water. I don't know.
They're trying to save water in Florida.
I don't know. We're grasping at straws, folks.
Well, anyway, so another huge change is how, not Illuminations, what's it called? Interventions has been dwindled down to pretty much nothing. In fact, I had trouble even finding Interventions. Interventions is just like 3 exhibits now in one little side. It's like across from where Ellen's Energy Adventure and the Mission Space is located. There's just one section of it that's still there, and it's not very busy. I went in there and I saw a like this color show where you had to. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. We weren't specifically looking for it, but I did notice that anything that was in that building, if it was open, it was like a meet and greet.
Yeah, see, that was in another place. This was on the other side. There was 3 exhibits in one of the spaces that used to be part of Interventions, and now this is the only thing that's still considered Interventions. There was some sort of a exhibit where you went inside like a house or something and saw things, and that was only at specific times.
Really?
And I missed it by just a few minutes, and I would have to wait an hour and a half for the next showing of it, so I didn't bother. And if I had been there at the right time, I would have done it, but they had another one that was ongoing that was like a color exhibit, and they actually gave you like these fake paintbrushes with fiber optics on them, and you went up to these walls and painted them with your fiber optic brush. It was kind of silly.
Yeah. Did it actually work well?
Not really, because then you were supposed to dip it in like the light. There was this table in the center, and they had different buckets, and you're supposed to dip it in the bucket, and it was supposed to paint it the color that you dipped it in, but then when you painted it, it changed the color anyway.
Oh.
It didn't keep the color you dipped it in, and I said, how come it's not the same color, to the guy running it? And he said, oh, because it's muted.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, okay.
It's not working right.
No, he said when the color dries, it's a muted tone.
Oh gosh.
Which I don't know if that was true.
That's a Disney answer right there.
Yeah. So anyway, that was that. So basically everything else that used to be Interventions is now a character. The Interventions that was on the opposite side, that is near where, because Interventions used to be several different sections of that building. Like there's that whole center building that used to be known as Communicore was Interventions at one time. So now the other half of what used to be Interventions is all character meet and greet. The whole thing. There's like several rooms of meet and greets just in this big space. One of them was Baymax, and I saw him for a minute, because I could see him from out without being in the line. You could still see him. He was cute.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a meet and greet. What does that have to do with the future?
Right.
But anyway, so that was sort of sad to see that has kind of not its glory days have fully ended. It's like Interventions is on its last leg. It's dying a painful death. It seemed like I did go into Club Cool.
Yeah?
And I tried Beverly.
You tried Beverly.
And it was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was just gross.
Yeah, it is gross.
In fact, there was only 2 flavors that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a pineapple one that I liked.
Yes, that was my favorite one.
And then there was another one that kind of tasted like bubble gum that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them were nasty. All of
Yeah.
them. They had like this really bitter taste to them.
Mm-hmm.
But when Walt made that film right before he died, and he showed everybody his future plans for Epcot, in the back of his mind, he really wanted a place where people could taste different Coca-Colas from around the world.
Yeah.
That was his main reason for building Epcot. That's my sarcasm, in case that didn't translate very well. So my overall impressions of the whole thing that used to be considered Communicore and then Interventions, that whole Central Plaza area, it's a mess. Mm-hmm. They've got like stuff left behind from when it was Interventions, like different like decorations and stuff, but they haven't taken down yet. And it's like the color, it's a mishmash. It's not what it once was. That whole plaza area needs, and they are going to be redoing it, because we found out about that at D23 last year. So we know that it's not going to be like that much longer. They're planning on redoing it, and it does need it for sure.
Do you think they're going to like tear those buildings down and build something new, or are they going to utilize the buildings that are already there?
I don't know. I think that either way, if they do something with the buildings that are there that makes sense and looks nice, then that's fine. If they get rid of them and do something else, it's not something I'm sentimental about, really, because there's nothing there now that was there in 82. Right. Just the buildings themselves. Nothing inside those buildings has anything to do. So I'm okay with it. And they never were like anything all that special on the outside anyway. Right. They're just kind of industrial looking buildings. They were trying to make them look futuristic and just kind of modern architecture, and there's not really anything all that special about those. So anyway,
but there's one thing that I like about it is the particular design. Now, not the buildings, but the way that this hub area is structured so that it's very easy to know where to go in this park.
That's true. Yeah. This is probably the easiest park to navigate. Yeah. I mean, even easier than the Magic Kingdom, because of all the different side way. Magic Kingdom's pretty easy, but there's all these side paths, especially now with the new Fantasyland additions. It's kind of made things more confusing in that area. But yeah, so Epcot is definitely the easiest park to navigate. Speaking of navigating, let's navigate over to the Imagination Land Living Seas side of the park. I experienced basically every attraction that is available on this side of the park. So I'll just go in order, start with the Living Seas. I really enjoyed the new Living Seas with Nemo and friends. I thought that it was a great way to combine a very popular IP with an existing... I thought it was a good marriage. Mm-hmm. I thought they did it very well. I would like to see a little bit more... they did take some shortcuts in the actual attraction. Like, there's the scene where you're going by and the turtles are floating by you and it's just a screen. Mm-hmm. It seems like kind of a shortcut way to, fill in a space with something that doesn't cost too much money. But, overall, I thought they did a good job with the attraction. And it was enjoyable. And I actually rode it 2 times. Mm-hmm. I did notice, just kind of a travel tip, that if you're going to go on it late in the day, because up till like 5 o'clock, it's nursery school hell. But like after like dinner time, it's no man's land. There's nobody. So do it later in the day and you won't have to wait in line. Because the first time I went on it, I had a fast pass. And even in the fast pass, I had to wait like 20 minutes. The regular line was like an hour and a half.
Wow.
So I went on it later without a fast pass, and it was a walk-on.
Huh.
Yeah,
Huh.
so, and...
Good tip.
So, good tip. Definitely just go on it later. So I thought it was nice to go through the walkthrough queue too, because there's a lot of cute little details in there to see that I missed the first time I went on it. So try to go on it later in the day so you don't miss the queue too, because it's worth seeing. It's a cute queue area. So anyway, I rode that twice, and the thing is, I'm a big animal lover, so anything that has to do with animals, including sea life, I'm definitely into. So I spent a lot of time in there just looking at the fish and things, because that's really fun. I really enjoy just like staring at the sea life, and I went into every single room in the Sea Base Alpha area, and I looked at the, what do you call, not porpoises, but...
Dolphins?
No, we had this problem before when we were, I forget what, manatees.
Oh, okay.
I looked, you can see the manatees, you can see under their pool on the first level, and then you can see, above the water on the second level. So I did that. I enjoyed watching them eat big heads of lettuce. They were throwing heads of lettuce at them, and they were munching on them. There was a girl and a boy. There's the big aquarium room. I went in there and looked at that. I basically went inside every single exhibit and looked at like every fish there was to look at. When I went back, the first time I went, there was a huge wait for the turtle talk with Crush. So I skipped it. But when I went back the second time, there was no wait. I walked right in. Another reason to go later in the day. Because believe it or not, that turtle talk with Crush was incredible. I thought it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I had no expectations. But then when I sat there and watched it, and it was just a delight. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah.
That was like a highlight of Epcot for me, believe it or not, was that turtle talk. I really thought it was neat.
Yeah, it's really cute. I didn't see it at Epcot, but I've seen it at California Adventure because they have it in the animation building. And I used to take my daughter there all the time, and she loved it.
Yeah, and they interact with the adults, too. So it's not just fun for kids. It's the adults get a kick out of it, too. It doesn't talk down to the kids. It reminds me of the old, it's not like the cartoons you see on TV today. It reminds me of the old days when adults could appreciate it as much as the kids. So yeah. I really enjoyed that. So that was my... overall, I was really happy with my experience in the Sea Base Alpha. And I got to see the diver come down the big tube. So I was happy to know they're still doing that. Because I wasn't sure if they were still utilizing that. But apparently they are, because I saw the whole thing with the diver go up and down that big tube in the middle. So, yeah, I just was really happy about that. The land, next. The land, I understand why it is the way it is today, and I think it's good the way it is today. It's hard to do a stage show based on the food groups, because there are no longer 4 food groups, and it's just like, it's no longer such a easy thing to explain in that type of a format, because the whole food thing has gotten so complicated. The science behind it has changed so much since it was just the 4 basic food groups. I mean, that show, as cute as it is, it's not factual information anymore. Right. You'd be teaching people things that are not, because that show is supposed to be educational, And now it's just all sorts of information that's no longer true. There's no longer just 4 food groups, and it's not, it's not as cut and dry. So, I mean, the fact Kitchen Cabaret is not there anymore is sad for me, but I understand that it can't really be there anymore just because of what it is. But good riddance to Food Rocks. I hated that show. Couldn't stand that. Thought it was terrible. So I don't miss that at all. The last time I was there, it was Food Rocks. So I'm glad they have Soarin' there now. I think that is an amazing attraction. I only got to do it once just because the waits were just so 24 hours a day. I mean, not 24 hours, but from open to close, there was always a huge wait.
Yeah, you definitely need to get a fast pass to go on that.
I couldn't get a fast pass for it, and because they were all taken. And the only time I went on it, I was there at Rope Drop, and I was one of the first people on the attraction. So I didn't do Rope Drop except for one time at Epcot. So all the other times I went, it was just too long of a wait. It was ridiculous. So, I mean, it is a great attraction, though. I really enjoyed it. I understand why you were a little freaked out by the whole fear of heights thing, because when it first started, I was getting freaked out, but then after I kind of got the hang of it, I was okay. But the first, 30, 45 seconds of it, I was freaking out.
Yeah.
But then when I realized it was very smooth and it wasn't like Star Tours where it moves around and goes from side to side, it was just very smooth and peaceful. I wasn't as freaked out by it at that point. But that jump over the Empire State Building was pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Not the Empire State Building, the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower.
That was kind of a bit much for me too.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, I really loved it. And I enjoyed the whole theming of it. I thought they did just a really beautiful job of just making it look kind of like an airport terminal, but like a really, the color schemes, the browns and blues and golds. It kind of reminded me of photographs I've seen of what Space Station X1 used to look like at Disneyland in the 50s. Kind of that lobby area out in front of the attraction kind of looked like that to me. So I really enjoyed that lobby area. I thought it was really pretty, and I didn't realize how pretty it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be seemed like they just stuck something, because everything I've ever heard about it was just kind of stuck there for Disneyland's 50th anniversary, because they were doing this whole thing where they were putting one attraction from each park in Disney World as part of the whole 50th anniversary of Disneyland. What that has to do with Disney World, I don't know, but that was what they were doing. They brought an attraction from Disneyland Paris, which was the Lights, Motors, Action show. They brought Soarin' from California. So, I mean, that was just... they really did a good job of blending in the whole queue area with the rest of the building. It was just really well done. I was impressed. And I loved the attraction. And I wish I would have been able to do it more than once, but... So when I got out of Soarin', I ate at the food court in there, and the food court is not as nice as it once was. I think the food is better than it was, but the actual eating area and food service area is not as pretty as it once was. It used to have kind of a farm motif, and they got away from that, and it looks kind of bland and kind of like they're more concerned about moving people through quickly than having it have a beautiful theme to it, which is very un-Disney to me. It just kind of looked like a food court anywhere else. The seating area is still nice, but I'm just specifically talking about where you purchase and select your food in that whole food court area. Did you go in there and see that? Or?
I mean, we walked around because we were going on the attractions, but we didn't eat there.
You didn't eat there?
No.
I had a delicious, the food was excellent. In fact, the food was better than it once was, but the aesthetic was worse. So, but I had a really delicious pork, like barbecued pork, not piece of meat. What do you call a piece of pork, which was barbecued with mashed potatoes and carrots and a biscuit. It was really good. Anyway, I did do Living with the Land. I came back later because it was a really long line, and I knew from past experience how Future World can be really busy during the day, but at night it can be dead. Because everyone's in World Showcase because that's where the action is at night. So I came back and did Living with the Land at night. So it's always nice to go through that at night because it has a different look to it, because it's kind of an outdoor attraction because the ceiling is all glass going through the greenhouses. So it's really kind of neat to do that one at night because you've got the big ceilings, but it's all dark outside, so all the lighting is if there's no natural lighting at night, so it has a completely different look to it. So I mean, I think out of every attraction that I rode that wasn't a movie, because there's one other one I'll talk about later that's changed even less than this, but I think this has changed the least in Epcot out of everything. It's pretty much exactly what it was the last time I experienced it. The real change is only at the end, because it used to have like a whole space, like growing plants in space theme. They got rid of that, and they put in like just like a laboratory and some just different experiments they're doing with plants, not necessarily anything to do with space. So they kind of updated the last little part of it. But the majority of the attraction is pretty much exactly what it was. But in addition to doing the actual boat ride, I went back another day and I did the Behind the Seeds tour.
Oh, you did? Cool.
Which is the walk-through tour of the greenhouses where you get a little bit more of a detailed look at what goes on there. And I was in my scooter. It was totally accessible on the scooter. I could just take my scooter through the whole tour. So I suffer from major anxiety, and normally I'm fine when I'm at home and alone and there's nothing stressful going on. But when I'm in a big theme park with thousands of people, and I can get a little stressed out and have anxiety issues. So I do take some medication for it, and I had taken one right before I went on the Behind the Scenes tour. And one of the side effects of this medication is it makes me fall asleep. So like through half of the tour, I was like asleep.
Oh no!
Because I was sitting in my chair, so I kept dozing in and out. I mean, from what I saw of it, it was really nice. But I slept through like half of it, unfortunately. But I did enjoy the portions I was awake to see. How many people can say they slept through a walk-through tour?
Right.
But anyway, because there was a lot of like times where you just kind of stopped in one area, and then he kind of went through everything, pointed everything out, while you were just all clumped in one little section for about 15 minutes. And it was those times that I just kind of dozed a little bit. I wonder if anybody noticed that I was asleep. But at the end, they did a taste, they did a smell test where they passed around different things and you smelled them, and then he told you what you had to guess what they are, and then he told you what they are. And that was kind of interesting. One of them was coffee, one of them was peppermint or something. And then, they took you through the whole, where they grow the fish farm and all that, and he explained all that. And basically, it's just the same information that you get on the boat ride, but just a lot more of it, and you get to, take your time and just really explore everything, and everything gets pointed out to you in detail. It's definitely, it was $25 to take the tour. I think it's worth it. I think I got my money's worth. Had I stayed awake, I'm sure I would have gotten my money's worth. But it was recommended by a friend that I try it out, and I'm glad that I did it, because I had never done it before. It's always been there. They've always had that tour since the day Epcot opened, but I'd never had done it before. And you buy your tickets at the same place where Soarin' is. They have a desk there, and that's where you buy your ticket. And then the waiting area for it is right near Soarin'. So yeah, if you haven't experienced it before, I do recommend it, but don't take your meds before you go through there. So, okay, so let's move on. Oh, before we move on, that's the Lion King show had closed. That's no longer there. The movie that used to be Symbiosis, and it became this environmental fable with the Lion King characters. That's no longer operational. So I did not see that. But overall, I enjoyed the land, as I always have. And if you can't have a stage show with talking vegetables, then Soarin' is a good replacement. Anyways, at least they could have sung Veggie Fruit for me in the lobby as I was buying my Behind the Seeds tickets.
Yeah.
But nobody knew the words, I guess. Anyway, so let's talk about imagination. Imagination. So, I guess I'm one of the few people who's seen all three versions of Imagination now. Because the last time I went to Epcot was in '99, and it was that brief little window where they had the second version of Imagination, the one that everybody says was so terrible. And I wasn't impressed. I didn't like it either. But I mostly didn't like it because I thought to myself, why would they ever get rid of the original? Because it was an amazing attraction, and it was just a major letdown. When I didn't even know it had been replaced, because this was kind of pre-internet days. So I kind of heard a rumor that it was going to be replaced. But so when I went on it with because it was kind of like a big family trip the last time I went. So my dad was there, and he had never been to Epcot, and I wanted him to see this one, and then it was just kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
That it was what it was, because it wasn't as fantastic as what I wanted my dad to see, so that was kind of a bummer. Anyway, the new version is definitely a step up from what was there the last time, but there's no way you can even compare it to what the original attraction was. I mean, the new one was cute. It was not offensive. The second version was somewhat offensive. They blew I don't know. It was just really, really awful. So anyway, I mean, I'm glad Figment was a big part of it, and it was,
They do have that skunk smell.
Yeah, but I mean, it seemed to be worse the last time I
was
rode it.
it?
They did a lot more stuff to you than just that one skunk smell. Like, there was other things they did to you throughout the ride to freak you out. There was some things that were kind of scary that, like, they did different things to you to freak you out. It was almost like a fun house or something. This was a little less like that, but I mean, I don't know. I'm glad there's something there that's not too bad, but I only rode it once, and that was enough. And I kind of went through the little DreamWorks area that's now on the first floor. The old one was on the second floor. And it reminded me a lot of the original. They kind of had some of the same stuff, but it was all almost like an updated version of what was there with more modern technology that kind of... Because I remember some of the things in the old DreamWorks didn't always work right.
Yeah.
Like, one thing was the whole thing where you conducted the orchestra with your hands.
Yeah.
That never worked right. But they kind of have that in the new DreamWorks, but it works now because it's more modern technology. So, yeah, I mean, that's okay. I was okay with that. And I bought a Mickey Mouse ball cap in the gift shop on my way out because I needed one because the sun was crazy. The weather there it was like summer in February. It was in the high 80s every day I was there. And that Florida sun, it beats on you.
It does.
So I had to get a baseball cap. I So I just bought this cute little Mickey Mouse baseball cap. And I bought it while I was there because it was convenient. Anyway, I also saw the movie in where Captain EO and Magic Journeys used to be in that theater there.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it was like 3 different Disney shorts.
Disney and Pixar, yeah.
Yeah, and they were all 3D, so they gave out 3D glasses. So they showed Get a Horse, which I had never seen in 3D, because I had only seen it on, on the internet. I've never seen it in the theater, so it was nice to be able to see that finally in 3D, because everyone always says how wonderful it is, and it was pretty cool. And then they showed the one with the dog that eats all the food. Have you seen that one? I think it's a Pixar.
we went and saw this.
Oh, you saw it too?
Yeah. I forget the name of that. I remember the other one is Piper that they show.
I think it was Feast.
Oh yeah.
Feast. Yeah, and then Piper was the little bird that was absolutely. I know. I cried.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, but I thought it was kind of silly to have the theater bounce around.
Yeah, they're trying to do their 4D.
Well, I mean, that was put there when they had Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Because it was actually part of the experience of shrinking. Because, like, when the giant people walked around the theater. Did you ever see Honey, I Shrunk the Audience?
Yeah, in California.
Yeah, it was exactly the same in Epcot as it was in California. The theater was all the effects were the same. So, yeah, I mean, that's why that was put in. That wasn't even part of it when it was Captain EO. They added the bouncing floor when they put in Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. So, anyway, I don't think it was necessary to use the bouncing floor for this. It almost was a kind of a distraction.
Yeah.
Like when people bumped into something in the context of the cartoon, they'd make the floor jump. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me why they were even bothering with that. But anyway, I did enjoy that. I thought it was cute. But I mean, is that really an attraction?
Right.
I mean, you could put that on at any theater, minus the bouncing floor.
Yeah.
Around in any theater in America. I mean, there's nothing really all that special about it. I mean, those are 3 great shorts, but you can watch those shorts anywhere.
Right.
The
only thing is that you're actually seeing them in 3D. You can't see them in 3D.
Yeah, but if you if you saw them in a theater when they first came out, they were in 3D.
Right.
So.
That's true.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of a disappointment. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was nice to go into that theater again because I just have kind of the nostalgic feels for that whole space of what it once was. So it's nice to just be able to be in that space because of memories that I have attached to it. But I mean, overall, it wasn't anything as special as it once was. So I'd have to say Imagination was definitely kind of a letdown on the whole. I mean, the pavilion itself. Like, the seas was wonderful, I enjoyed it. The land, wonderful, I enjoyed it. Imagination, kind of a disappointment.
Yeah. It makes me sad because that was one of my favorite pavilions when we were doing all of our research. Yeah.
That used to be the best pavilion of all of them.
I just don't understand why they've let it go.
Because they lost Kodak and they don't have a sponsor and it's just a mess.
Ugh.
So anyway.
It hurts my heart.
It does. So let's go to the other side of Future World. So, of course, Ellen's Energy Adventure was closed. It had just Did you see it, or had it closed by the time?
No, it was closed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen it before, but we weren't able to see it in December.
Yeah, I've only seen the original. I never saw it with Ellen. When I went in '99, it was there, but we didn't do it. Mm-hmm. The last time I went on it, it was still the original Universe of Energy. So I did go on the test track and Mission Space, so I'll talk about those. So of course, the building where they have where they used to have the Life and Health Pavilion, which is sometimes open. I thought it might be open because they were doing the whole arts festival while I was there. They had like the Epcot Arts Festival or whatever it was called, but they weren't using that as part of it. In fact, the whole arts festival was kind of low key. It wasn't as big as what they do when they do the food and wine and the flower and garden. It was kind of not as big as the others, so I really didn't even notice that it was really going on. There wasn't much to it. They had some booths in the World Showcase, which I'll talk about in a minute, and they had some different like temporary places where you could look at pieces of art, and I'll talk about in a minute. The old Odyssey restaurant was actually doing an exhibit that I did go see, and I'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about Mission Space and Test Track. So Test Track was interesting because it's one of the only attractions that has a single rider line, I think, in all of Walt Disney World.
Right.
I didn't really come across many single rider lines. And also the single rider line accommodates my scooter, so I was able to just go right in there with my scooter and I didn't have to have a fast pass, and I just was able to get right on that one. So that was nice. Because I was by myself, so I'm a single rider.
Yep.
So, anyway, I really enjoyed Test Track. I mean, it's not as magical as what was once there, the World of Motion, which is one of my all-time favorites, but I tried to not let... My whole time in Epcot, I really tried to put out of my mind what was once there and just kind of appreciate it for what it is now. I really tried my best. So, if I enjoyed something, I wasn't trying to compare it with what was there before. I was trying to just enjoy it for what it was, and I was able to do that for the most part. Like I said, with the Soarin', I was able to appreciate that for what it was and not like get too sad about the fact that Kitchen Cabaret isn't there anymore. You know, I just kind of let those things go.
Yeah.
Same thing I can say with Test Track. I just didn't think about what was there at one time, and I just was able to enjoy that attraction for what it is. And I thoroughly did enjoy it. I thought it was a terrific attraction. I did it 2 times, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun. I don't understand. I mean, I just kind of looked at it as a fun ride. I didn't learn anything.
Right, that's true, yeah.
I think it doesn't even really need to have a theme of car race or testing cars, because I really didn't even get that from it. I just got it as kind of cool things to look at, and then kind of just going real fast at the end, which was fun.
Right.
I didn't really get the whole testing car. I mean, to me, it doesn't have it's very loosely has anything to do with that. I mean,
it actually used to be more.
Yeah, I know.
That used to be a deeper theme that actually you could feel throughout the whole thing, even in the queue. And then they changed it in 2012, which is kind of odd because the last time I went there, we went on Test Track and it was the other one. So it was a different sponsor, and it looked looked completely different than it does now.
Yeah, because they kind of went with a Tron aesthetic.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of neat. I enjoyed it. I just thought it was... I wasn't trying to hold it up to any standard. I just enjoyed it for what it was, and I thought it was neat overall. Okay. So I have a friend that's a really good friend, online buddy, that we kind of do research together, and we've known each other for years, and he's a really good guy, and I've seen his family grow. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, maybe 8 years. I mean, when I first started talking to him, his little boy was in diapers, and now his little boy is like almost 10 years old, so it's crazy. But anyway, he's a really good guy. But his little boy is obsessed with Mission Space. It's his favorite thing in all of Epcot. Yeah, because he wants to do something with the space program when he gets old, when he grows up. He's really into that whole thing. He doesn't want to be an astronaut, but he wants to like design systems that are used by astronauts, or I'm not exactly sure, but his son is really into that. So he loves this attraction. So I really feel bad by saying this because I didn't like it that much. I think that I liked some things about it, but I think they could have done a lot better. I mean, maybe because I did the green and not the orange. For those who don't know, the green is like the tame version, and the orange is like the horrifying version where people have died. So I can see how I understood after writing it how the green must compare to the orange, because like when you take off and land, I can see how like they could do that more intense, like make it feel like you're really blasting off, and you feel like the feeling of like your face caving in, like what do you call that? Gravity forces or whatever. I'm not a scientist or an astronaut, folks. I don't know these terms, so you have to forgive me. I only know my Disney history. I don't know astrophysics and stuff like that. Anyway, I was just like, kind of like, the window that you look out of is really small, and I felt kind of sandwiched. Like, it's Mission No Space is what I thought it should be called. Yeah. Like, I was the only one in my capsule, too. I was alone in there.
You didn't have 3 other people with you?
No,
what?
I was alone.
Wow.
So well, the thing is, I went on it again late. That's the secret to Epcot, everybody. Do World Showcase in the morning,
or when it opens,
when it first opens, and do Future World at night. It's dead. There's no wait for anything except for Soarin'. That no matter what, there's always a line for Soarin'. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Oh, I can just go here at night, and there's still a 90-minute wait for Soarin', 5 minutes before the park closes. So
wow.
Anyway, the thing is that I just walked right into all these things. Out of every park, I had the most pleasant time at Epcot because I didn't have to wait in line for anything I did. Nothing. Everything I either had a fast pass for, or I went to it at the right time where I didn't need to wait in any line. Everything was like just planned out perfectly. Yeah. Thanks a lot to concierge for giving me some tips, because I didn't know some of the changes. Like, he filled me in on some of the things I needed to be aware of because of as far as traffic flow patterns, because of, it's been 18 years since I last went there, so things have changed somewhat.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I felt that the queue, and I even already told this to my friend that I was talking to about this attraction. He was like, "Oh, did you love Mission Space?" I was trying to be diplomatic about it, but I told him that I was disappointed in the queue, because I really felt like, I mean, that's such a wide open, so many things you can do with that theme of space.
Right.
And they just it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
The queue area, there's just nothing exciting about it. I was not taken. I mean, space travel is like, they could do something amazing with the queue.
Right.
Based on that. But, nah. I mean, it was attractive. I mean, it was it didn't look like I was in the garbage dump. But
right.
I mean, it was well designed. I mean, it was pleasant, but it wasn't exciting and mind-boggling like it could have been, I mean, I wanted to see the same theme of the exterior of the building carried on the interior, because the exterior of that building is amazing.
Right.
That's a really amazing building that they built. I mean, that was probably, out of everything about Mission Space, the thing that I found to be the most impressive was the building. Right. Not the attraction. So the attraction was cute. I enjoyed it. I didn't have to wait. I was in my own little room. I kind of enjoyed how it went backwards, and I got to kind of lie down and relax for a minute. It's very, tame. Don't be afraid at all to go on the green version. I was not at all, it was fun. it wasn't like it was boring or anything. Like, I enjoyed it. It was an entertaining little trip around Earth. But I mean, I wasn't scared at all. There was nothing like freaky about it. I'm sure if I went on the orange version, I'd be horrified. But as far as this, I was just kind of like relaxed. You know, I had taken my drug, you know, because I had to take my anti-anxiety med when I went to Epcot. I mean, don't get the idea, folks, that I'm like addicted to drugs, because I never take my meds unless I have. Like, they're take as needed, and I only take because they make me so drowsy that I don't like taking them unless I absolutely have to. But I had to at the parks because that's too much for me. Anyway, that being said, I mean, it was okay. I mean, and again, I wasn't thinking about Horizons. It's not. I didn't even think about Horizons at all. It's not why I didn't like it. I just felt like it was not what I expect out of Disney to do with the theme of space travel. I mean, compare it to Space Mountain. I mean, that's amazing compared to this. Yeah. So it's kind of a letdown when they didn't carry this as far as they could take it. They really just kind of, I don't know. I shouldn't be going through something at Disney that's based on space travel and going, oh, that's interesting. You know, I should be amazed by it.
Right,
you know?
right.
That's what I expect from Disney. So, that's basically I keep calling it the wrong thing. That's basically Future World. So, I mean, overall, I enjoyed Future World. It's not nearly as wonderful as it once was, but it still has some wonderful things in it that I can appreciate and enjoy, and I did enjoy many of the things. I even enjoyed Mission Space overall. I thought the attraction itself was nice. I think it was just more about the theming surrounding it that I wasn't impressed with. The attraction itself was pleasant. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It wasn't, you know, and it looked like I was really in a rocket. I mean, they well themed. When you're getting into the vehicle, it's obviously some sort of weird looking contraption.
Right.
But once you're in there and sitting in there, and the thing is, they tell you in the queue that it's a simulator. Like, that's the theme of it, where you're practicing to become an astronaut. That's what the story of it is anyway. Mm-hmm. So they tell you up front, this isn't a real spaceship. It's a simulation. We're teaching you to become an astronaut. So, I mean, in that regard, it was okay. It wasn't like they were trying to pass this off as being a real spaceship or anything.
Right.
As part of the storyline. So, I don't know. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Dinosaur. I kind of made some correlations between this attraction and Dinosaur. It just kind of felt the whole way they introduced the show and everything had some similarities.
It does have similarities in that respect, but Dinosaur's way better.
Dinosaur's way better, especially because you got Felicia Rashad, who I absolutely love, and I thought she was just fantastic in this.
Yeah.
So anyway, the World Showcase. Let's start with World Showcase. I don't know if we'll get through World Showcase on this episode, but anything we don't get through, we'll talk about on the next show. So, I kind of went the opposite direction that I normally go. I normally go from Mexico to Canada, but because I had a fast pass for Frozen later in the day, I decided to do Canada and work my way around to Norway in the opposite direction. And I actually kind of timed it out perfectly, because when I got to Norway, it was exactly when my fast pass started. So, I mean, again, I just had a really pleasant experience at Epcot. I really had no waiting in line or anything. And the park was really busy and crowded, but I just timed everything perfectly, and just all seemed to work out for me. So the first thing I did was I went to Canada, and I wanted to see the Circle Vision film. I had a little bit of trouble finding the wheelchair entrance, and I did complain about this to the cast member, but she kind of brushed me off. I guess she's heard it all before. That's kind of the impression I got, that I'm not the first one to complain. So she's kind of sick of hearing about it. But, I mean, she was nice to me, but she obviously wasn't going to do anything about it.
Right.
But anyway, the handicap entrance is actually, like, you have to go over this weird bridge, and it's kind of a one-way bridge, but they expect you to go the opposite direction against traffic on this bridge that is really only wide enough to fit one person at a time, not people going one direction and another direction. So that was a problem. And then the other problem was that I couldn't find the entrance, and I went around asking cast members, and they didn't know where the entrance was either.
Really?
I mean, they knew where the regular entrance was,
but not the handicap.
Right. So I just was, like, really frustrated. By the time I finally got into the theater, I was so annoyed, because I not only took me forever to find the entrance, but then when I finally did find it, I had all these people coming at me with strollers and everything, and I couldn't get across the bridge.
Ugh.
So it was just kind of annoying. Anyway, that being said, I finally did get into the theater, and I thoroughly enjoyed this version. I'd seen the original, which is a totally different movie and a little bit longer. I think they've tried to shorten these films because I guess they don't think people have patience enough to watch 18 minutes, so now they're only 15 minutes. But anyway, the original Oh Canada film was kind of dry, and it wasn't my favorite. I mean, out of every Circle Vision film that I have seen, which is really only this one, the one in China, and then the one that used to play in Disneyland America, the Beautiful, and then American Journeys. Out of those four, this was probably my least favorite. But I still wanted to see it because, you know, and I knew it had changed. They completely redid it, and now it's hosted by Martin Short. Did you see this when you went?
When we were there, we went to go see it, and it wasn't the right time, so we just moved on.
Oh.
But I really like the outside and the water fountain and stuff like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much exactly the same. None of that's changed. That was like that the last time I went.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, the movie's much better. I really enjoyed it. And I didn't get bored. Like, I was thoroughly entertained. And I don't think Martin Short was goofy and wacky. I mean, at some points he was, but overall, he was pretty serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, like, making fun of any... It was done very, like... He was honest, because he's a Canadian, so he was really, like, proud of his country and really talking about how wonderful everything and his, you know, how... And I just was really moved by it, and I thought it was a great presentation. And they had the original song from the original show still in it.
Oh,
so
that's good.
Yeah, so, you know, the Canada,
Mm-hmm.
oh Canada, which I'm always singing. So I was glad that was still part of it, and once I finally got into the theater, I enjoyed it. And I was there, like, right when it was starting, so I didn't have to wait. So I timed that perfectly, too. So then I kind of went through England, and there's no attractions in England, so I just kind of drove around in my little scooter. See, I had my little scooter, so I'm just kind of driving around everywhere. And I went to the little area, and I saw Mary Poppins. There's a Mary Poppins meet and greet, and I saw her there, and that kind of made me happy. And I just, you know, took about 10 minutes and drove around, and I think I used the restrooms in England, and then I moved on to France. So France has an attraction, and this is the only attraction in all of Epcot that has not changed at all. It's exactly the same as it was the last time I saw it. And this is a film called Impressions de France. And I always loved this, and I still love it, and I enjoyed it. And the main reason I love it is because of the music. And it's all by Buddy Baker, based on classical music themes, but it's all his arrangements of it. And it's just wonderful music, wonderful visuals. It's not a 360. It's a sit-down theater, and it's screens that surround you like 180 degrees. So it's still like a big widescreen type presentation, but it's not, it's not quite the same as a 360. The theater that you watch it in is very beautiful. It's based on the Moulin Rouge Theater in France, in Paris, and it's just very nice. I don't think it's the Moulin Rouge. Let me take that back. It's based on a famous theater in Paris, which is near the Moulin Rouge. It's like the theater district of Paris, but it's not. I think it's like Palais du Cinema or something. I don't remember. I don't want to give out misinformation or I'd be a hypocrite. Because I said. So anyway, loved the movie. What I really loved about it, I had forgotten how they have, the cast members are from the actual countries. So, like, it was really nice to have the cast member come up and have a French accent and say, "I hope you enjoy the film about my country." It was just really nice. So, anyway, after France, I moved on to Morocco. And again, I just kind of drove around because there's no attractions. I did notice they added a whole row of shops and a little restaurant on the front facing right on the shoreline that was not there before. So there's like more shopping and a quick service there that wasn't there before. And that was always my favorite, to just kind of go down the byway because it's very finely detailed. And there's all sorts of nooks and crannies, but it's kind of hard to like enjoy nooks and crannies on a scooter. So I kind of didn't really spend too much time in there, but I did look, I went to where the entrance to the Marrakesh restaurant is, and I just like drove around and looked at the buildings for a little while. Really enjoyed it. Probably has not changed other than that strip of shops that they added. It's pretty much exactly as I remembered it. Same with England, same with Canada, same with France. I mean, all the buildings look exactly the same. So, I mean, that's a good thing to me. I want it to be the same because I loved it the way it was before. I don't want them to change it.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed being there again because it's just been so long. And the last time I went, we didn't really do World Showcase. We took the boat from Future World to World Showcase and just saw the America show, and then we left and went to the Hollywood studio because we were just there for one day the last time I went. It was kind of a family outing. Really, the last time I technically went, other than that one kind of half day, was in 96. So it's really been over 20. It's been like 22 years since I really explored the parks in full. And we didn't even go to the Magic Kingdom the last time I went to, but I already mentioned that. So anyway, so the next thing I did, of course, we're going in order, so it would be Japan. And that's right, isn't it Japan and then America? No, it's Japan. And so Japan doesn't really have an attraction either, but they have an exhibit and a really interesting gift shop. That sells really. It's the gift shop I've always thought of as an attraction on itself.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I went into the museum and I was delighted by the new exhibit they have there because it used to be kind of dry stuff. It was more about like really ancient Japanese history and stuff. But the new exhibit, and it's new to me. I think it's been there many years, but it's new to me. Is they have an exhibit based on. There's a name for it in Japanese, but it's basically Japanese cute culture. Did you see this exhibit, Ruth, when you went?
We didn't.
It's in that castle. You have to go through the castle over the drawbridge, and it's in that building.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole room, and it's just filled with, like, they talk about how, like, after World War II, Japanese people kind of attach themselves to this whole cute culture, and it's something that's still going on today, like the whole Hello Kitty thing and Rocket Boy and just all these different pop culture things that Japanese people have latched onto over the years that have kind of a very cute aesthetic. And I enjoy that stuff too. I enjoy cute things like that. I'm a Disney fan, so naturally I gravitate towards that. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just a little room filled with things to look at, but I thought it was really well done. So after I did that, I went into that big, I forget what it's called, but it's just like a big, it's based on a store in Japan that's a huge shopping mall. And it's kind of like a miniature version. It's actually operated by this, I believe it's operated by the same company that runs the real one in Japan. At least it used to be. I don't know if it still is. But, I mean, they have like all sorts of Japanese souvenirs and trinkets. And they have like, you know, silk geisha robes and bonsai trees. And they have a pearl where they open up oysters like right in front of you and they dig pearls out, and I love it. But I was in the scooter again, hard to maneuver around all these people, so I didn't spend too much time in there. It was very crowded, so I left pretty quickly after I just kind of got the general idea of what was in there, and I didn't have much money to spend, so it wasn't. But anyway, I didn't eat there that day, but I did go back and eat there another day, and it was one of my best meals the whole time, because they have a quick service there, and you kind of sit out in the gardens, and I love Japanese food. They have a full service, which is very expensive too. I didn't eat there, but I ate at the quick service, and I had sushi, and I had chicken teriyaki, and rice, and all sorts of yummy stuff. And they had like this lemon drink. It wasn't lemonade, it was like a special kind of I don't know, it kind of tasted Japanese to me, but it was delicious. And the atmosphere there is so beautiful. You just sit out in the garden where they have like the bonsai trees and the sand, you know, the sand gardens. And they used to have koi fish, but I didn't see any koi fish. But anyway, as I was eating, they had the drummers drumming, you know how they do, over in that big tower building that's nearby. So I really enjoyed my time in Japan. Then I went to America. I didn't have to go far to get to America. Basically, I mean, well, the lobby has changed a little bit because it used to be a lot more open, and now the place where they have the exhibit, where they show artwork and stuff, is in a separate room. They actually made it a separate room. It used to all be one big room where everything was just kind of there. I never had time to go into the separate room because when I got there, the show was pretty much I watched the Voices of Liberty for about 10 minutes. And then the show was going to start. So I didn't have time to go into the little museum room. But the show itself was pretty much exactly how I remember it. I mean, the only thing that changed was some of the footage in the little film segment at the end. They updated some of that. But the soundtrack wasn't updated. They just kind of changed the little montage at the end, you know. It's like they go up to World War II and then the rest of it's just this little montage. I mean, it made sense in 82 when it was only 40 years, or not even, like 35 years since World War II had ended. But I mean, so they only had to cover like 35 years in the last little montage. Now we're talking like, what, 75 years that they have to cover in like the last 2 minutes of the show. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. But I mean, they added, you know, footage from 9/11 and Barack Obama, and you know, a lot has happened since the last time I went to Epcot.
Definitely.
So they added a little bit to the montage, but other than that, I mean, it was exactly the exact same show, which there's nothing wrong with that because I love the show. I wouldn't want it to change. Well,
I think they are going to update it.
Well, I don't
so
want them to.
You've seen it.
Yeah, I got to see it one last time. I didn't hear that they're gonna. Where did you hear that?
I think I heard recently that they're looking at updating it.
As long as they don't put an IP in it.
Right. Oh my gosh.
What IP would they? Oh, make it Zootopia.
No, Zootopia should go in Animal Kingdom, not in Epcot.
Anyway, so I guess we're not quite at an hour and a half yet, so I'll talk a little bit more, but I don't know that we're going to get through all of World Showcase on this episode. We'll wrap it up on the next show, but I'll just talk for a few more minutes while we have a little bit more time left. I did go to Italy. I've never been that impressed by Italy. There's really, unless you eat there, there's really not much to see. I mean, the buildings are beautiful. And I did notice that they added a whole back section that wasn't there, where they have the new pizza restaurant. That wasn't even there the last time I went. That whole section behind the Fountain of Triton. You know, they have that fountain with that was like the very back of that pavilion. So the whole area behind it is new. And so that was interesting. So at least it's been expanded a little bit. If you've seen pictures of their Italy section at Tokyo Disney Sea, and then you compare it to this, it's like really a bummer. They have an amazing Italian section at Tokyo Disney Sea with actual gondola boats that you can ride, and there's a whole hotel that you can stay in. It's part of the buildings. It's right, you're staying actually physically in the park.
Wow.
It's kind of really cool there, but I mean, the one at Epcot, I mean, there's so much potential there, and they totally could make it more than what it is. They have the space for it. They just have never bothered. But anyway, Italy, Schmittily. What's the next country? Is it Germany?
Germany, yeah.
Germany is gorgeous, but again, there's really not much to see unless you're eating there. Because I always enjoyed the beer garden, and they have like the live show going on in there and everything. But I just, I didn't have a reservation, and I didn't have really the money to eat there. I was all on the quick service plan, and it's not a quick service place, so I wasn't really able to fully appreciate Germany because I didn't go into the beer garden. But I mean, I still think it's one of the prettiest of the pavilions, just because I love that type of architecture. So I mean, I did drive my scooter around a little bit and look around at the buildings, and I think I went into the teddy bear shop and the Der Teddy Bar. Which is kind of funny because teddy bears are like totally, I mean, it's named after Theodore Roosevelt. I don't know what that has to do with Germany, but whatever.
Right.
They should have, if they're going to have a teddy bear shop, it should be in the American Pavilion. But anyway, I enjoyed that. And then I guess I made my way to China. And yeah, and then I saw the China film. But what was interesting, it was starting to drizzle a little bit. So I kind of rushed to China because I wanted to get inside because I can't have my scooter getting wet. So sometimes when you feel a couple driplets of water in Florida, it means like in 5 minutes it's going to be a complete downpour. Fortunately, that did not happen. It never started to rain. It was just a few driplets and then it stopped. But I went inside the holding area before you see the Circle Vision film. And because there were a few droplets, they actually brought the Chinese acrobats inside to do their act, which they normally do outside. So they canceled the showing of the Circle Vision show, just one showing of it, and instead the audience waiting for the show got to watch the acrobats do their thing inside in that little holding area before you go into the theater. So that was nice. I enjoyed that. And then right after that, you got to watch the movie.
That's cool.
I watched the acrobats, which they were fantastic. I mean, they kind of cut out, you could tell they cut out probably some of their more stuff they can't really do inside.
Right, yeah.
But still, like, what they did do was pretty impressive. And the music was beautiful. They had great music to accompany them, and it's nice. So then we went inside the theater and watched the film. The film was a bit of a disappointment because I really loved the original. And they basically had added in a lot of new footage, which things they did not have access to in the 80s, because back in the 80s, people don't understand how closed off China was to the rest of the world, and it was actually a very unique and special opportunity for Disney to be able to go into China and film. I mean, it was just like really special at that time to be able to see that part of the world, because it was closed off to Western society for so long. And so, I mean, now China is a lot more open, even though you're not allowed to Google the word Disney anymore.
And how many parks does China have?
I know. I don't understand how that's going to work exactly. Right? But anyway, the thing is that they have access now to a lot more areas than they did back then. So they showed a lot more things that they weren't able to film back in the early 80s. So that was nice to be able to see more of China than I had seen before. But they basically slaughtered the original presentation. They kind of put bits and pieces from the original in this new version. They had the same narrator. They had like a Chinese, what's the word? There's a word in Chinese they use, like a Confucius type character.
Oh,
like
okay,
telling the story of China history. They still had that same actor, but they dubbed over his voice with someone else, and I don't understand why they had to dub it, because he said the exact same thing that the other actor did, only the other actor had a much nicer voice, I think, and you could totally tell that it was dubbed, and it looked really bizarre. And I don't know, I just feel like the original was so much better, and I was just kind of disappointed. So Canada was better than the original, but China was not as good as the original film. That was my takeaways. But what I did enjoy in China was they had an exhibit where they showed a lot of the models and maps and concept art and things for Shanghai Disneyland, right there near the China, right, kind of where the exit to the, it used to be called Wonders of China. Now what's it called? Reflections of China. Kind of as you exited it, it was kind of near there. So did you see that when you went?
No, we didn't really walk too deep into a lot of the pavilions, so I didn't see a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So I guess right now we can end with. Well, I only have 2 pavilions left, so why don't we just finish Epcot? Well, do you want to wait till the next show, Ruth, or what?
I'm fine with however you want to do it.
Well, we're almost done, so why don't we finish? I just have 2 pavilions, and then I want to talk about the Odyssey, and then we'll be done with Epcot. So, all right, so the next one was obviously Frozen, or Norway, and I had a fast pass for Frozen, so I did not have to wait very long, maybe 10 minutes. The regular line was probably 2 hours. If I had to wait 2 hours for that, I would have been very angry. I was not impressed by Frozen attraction. I felt that it was done on the cheap, and it was thrown together. It looked more like an overlay than a real attraction. And I remember how impressive the original attraction was, and this was basically taking the exact same ride system, ripping everything out, and putting in cheap sets and, like, unimpressive animatronics. Like, okay, the Olaf was impressive. Some of it was impressive, but the actual figures of people, because of those awful projected faces, and you could see a line across their chin.
Yep.
That was really bad. And I don't know. I feel like that just looked terrible.
Yeah, and when we were talking about this before, you were saying that the faces were glowing, and and they definitely are glowing in this ride. Yeah.
And then when you go backwards after seeing Elsa and her castle, and then they have like these really like tacky projections on the wall that reminded me more of like an MTV video than of an actual Disney attraction. I mean, it just seems so cheesy, tacky. And then a lot of the walls were blank. Like, they just didn't do any, like, they just painted them black and did nothing with them. And then you could see a lot of the, like, backstage stuff. Not so much backstage, but, like railings and wiring. Not wiring, but piping and like a lot of the stuff that should be disguised
Mm-hmm.
and hidden so it doesn't distract from the attraction they didn't bother.
Yeah.
Like they just let it, they just let it go.
Oh, God.
So I mean, I really feel like they really dropped the ball on that, and they just didn't. I mean, it wasn't worthy of a Disney attraction. I think it was just done on the cheap to get something open to get people in the park, to draw people in.
Yeah, it also draws people over to World Showcase too.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know. I mean, it's fine that they're going to put in a Frozen attraction, but do it right.
Right. Yeah.
I just was totally disappointed.
Yeah, it's so short too. And I know the original ride it's the same length as the original ride as Maelstrom. But I mean, couldn't they have added to it?
They can, because there's plenty of space behind.
Right.
There's plenty of space behind all those pavilions to add more. Plenty. I've been behind these. I know. I used to work in the parks, and I've been backstage at Epcot, and there's tons of space behind those buildings. It's just like grass.
Yeah.
They just have like little roads leading from each. Because people who work at Epcot, there's a main building behind World Showcase that they change their costume in, and that's where the lockers are and everything. And then they just take a little bus to each pavilion from that main little locker area, and it's just like a bunch of little roads that the buses go on to get from one pavilion to the next, and there's just nothing back there at all. You would never know how much space is back there unless you saw it with your own eyes. It's incredible. There's no excuse that they can't add on to that Frozen attraction. There's so much space back there, it's ridiculous. I did like the little additions that they made with the little meet and greet area. I thought that was well done. I mean, I didn't go to meet Anna and Elsa, but
Right.
I saw the exterior of it. I did finally taste school bread. Did you hear me mention school bread before?
I've heard of it.
This is something that everyone rants and raves about online. Every podcast I listen to, people that are Epcot regulars always say you gotta taste the school bread. So I went into it's a tiny, tiny little bakery. And I went in there and I got the school bread, and the guy that was serving it, he was Norwegian, believe it or not. I said, everyone told me to get the school bread, and he said, oh, you're right, that's the best thing here. And then everyone, like, nobody, he wasn't like promoting it or anything, but then everybody in the line after me started ordering it after they heard my conversation. So, yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty delicious, yes. It was kind of like a donut consistency on the outside, and it had like a layer of vanilla kind of flavored custard on top of it, but then the surprise was I thought that was frosting. It turned out to be like really rich custard with kind of not a lemony, but a vanilla aftertaste to it. But then when you bite into it, it's filled with the same thing.
Oh, wow.
It's completely filled with that. And I couldn't eat the whole thing because it was so rich.
Right.
As delicious as it was, I could only eat about 2/3 of it, and I knew if I ate more, I would get sick.
Yeah.
Because it was just so rich. So I threw out like a good part of it. But it was very inexpensive. It was only like $3. So not only is it delicious, but it's like a bargain. So anybody who ever goes to Norway and Epcot, hopefully you're with someone else, because I was alone. But if you're with someone else, split a school bread with someone, because it's too much for one person. But if you only eat half of it, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ranting and raving they were not exaggerating. It was delicious. Okay, so the last pavilion, of course, would be Mexico. I kind of rushed through the little Africa section because that's when I was like worried it was going to rain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was trying to get over to China so I could get inside real quick. Fortunately, it never rained. But anyway, I mean, going into the Mexico Pavilion, the minute you go in, that smell.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. It was exactly like I remembered it, and it just brought back a flood of memories. It's like tortilla mixed with chlorine. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's the smell of the Mexico Pavilion. And it's a marvelous smell, believe it or not. It's just like, I don't know. They say that your sense of smell is the most connected to memories.
Yeah.
So, I loved the little Coco exhibit they had.
Yeah, that was cute.
At the entrance there. They've always had like an Aztec or Mexican art little exhibit there, but it's nice that they had art from Coco and the kind of a Day of the Dead, Deo de los Muertos little exhibit, and I enjoyed that. I mean, everything was exactly the same in there. I mean, everything looked like it did the last time I was in there, like it was I had only just seen it the day before.
Except they had Coco merchandise in there now.
Yeah, I didn't really go into the shops. I just kind of went around the main plaza. And then I went to the boat ride, which has changed quite a bit. It used to just be, the last time I rode it, it was the original version, the El Rio de Tiempo. Now it's the Grand Fiesta Tour, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I loved having the Three Caballeros in there, and it was really amazing to see the audio animatronics of, because those were from the original Mickey Mouse Revue from the 70s. And then they moved them over to Japan for several years, and now they're back at Disney World again. And it was just great to see like those full articulated animatronics from when they really, they weren't projecting the faces on back then. They were real animatronics, so that was delightful. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I loved the original. I loved the new one even more. So I just, I only got to go on it once because I really didn't get back to Epcot too much. I did go back to eat at Japan, but it was so hot that day that I kind of went back to my hotel after I ate dinner in Japan. I was going to stay and watch Illuminations, but I never got... I was so pooped by that time, I just had to go back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a lot of really early morning stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time, 9 o'clock, I was ready to go to bed. Because I was getting at the parks, at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I was the first one in every morning. I wasn't fooling around with the rope drop thing. So, anyway, the last thing I want to talk about Epcot is I was able to go inside the Odyssey restaurant. The last time I was there, it was closed because they hadn't been using it as a restaurant, and they still aren't using it as a restaurant for many years, but they do use it for special things. And because they had the arts festival going on, they had a special exhibit in there, and they actually had a Disney animator in there showing everyone how to draw Stitch.
Oh, cool.
So everybody was kind of gathered around at little tables, and he had 2 cameras focused on his desk, so you could see what he was doing. He had screens behind him, and then his animations desk, you could see what he was doing on the screens behind him. So he was teaching everybody to draw Stitch, and then they had an exhibit in the building all around where they showed the posters, Disney attraction posters.
Oh, cool.
From they had the original Disneyland, and then they had Disney World from the 70s. They had all up to the present, a whole little area. And they had a little gift shop where they were selling all sorts of cool Disney coffee table books. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff I remember seeing at the Disney Gallery. So it was really nice to see a little area like that, even though it was just kind of temporary. And they were actually serving cocktails there too. I don't drink, so I didn't have one, and if I had one with the anti-anxiety meds I was on, you'd have to carry me out of that. So anyway, I mean, I was glad to be able to go in there again because it's been so long. I remembered it being a lot bigger in there. It's kind of tiny in that. It's not that big of a space. But one thing, everyone talks about how that building has the very best restrooms in all of Epcot. And I just didn't have to go at that time, so I didn't bother to check them out. But what everybody loves about those restrooms is they've never been redecorated. They look exactly the same, like gold tile, like that orange tile. Very 70s looking.
Cool.
So everybody always says how they love the Odyssey restrooms, but I mean, I've seen them on YouTube. A restroom to me is not that
it's not an attraction. So,
yeah, some people are crazy about Disney restrooms. Like there's YouTube channels all about them.
Wow.
Believe it or not. But I mean, yeah. So I didn't really bother. So anyway, I went to the bathroom in the Land Pavilion instead. But so that's basically my whole Epcot experience. I mean, a lot of it is how I remembered it. A lot has changed. I mean, I see room for improvement in Epcot, but a lot of it's different to think about it having been removed from it for so long, but when you actually go there and see it in person, it's not as bad as you think. Like, I don't know. I wasn't as disappointed as I thought I would be, but I think it's because I kept my expectations low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I love Epcot. I mean, even though I know it's not what it used to be, I still love that park.
Yeah.
I mean, it just has this feel that I really, I'm attracted to, and I just love it. I love the bones of that park. So, I mean, I really enjoy going to that park.
Yeah. I like it because you don't get lost. There's so much space. Everything's wide open. It's beautiful landscaping. I mean, the countries are gorgeous, even though I wish there were more attractions. But, I mean, that hasn't changed. I mean, I always wish there were more attractions.
Right.
It was like that from the day they opened.
Mm-hmm.
They never had enough attractions in World Showcase. But I guess, it's more about dining and drinking around the world. And those are things I don't really do.
Right. Yeah.
I don't drink, and I'm not... I don't have the money to be spending on, fine dining.
Right.
I mean, I did enjoy eating in Japan, but I mean, that was considered quick service, so I don't know. If I had more money, maybe I'd enjoy it. Like, if I had money to buy stuff and drink, and if I was able to drink and enjoy drinking, I really don't even enjoy drinking. I don't know.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
More.
Because that is definitely a lot of what, especially in World Showcase, that's one of the main things to do.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm more of a kid. I like to do rides.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see, shows and attractions and rides. I'm not into the shopping and dining and drinking. I'm not into adult stuff. I'm into kid stuff.
Yeah.
So. I guess that's why I'm not as much of an Epcot person as others are. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's beautiful. I used to love the Future World, because I thought it had great attractions. And to some degree it still does, but there's a lot of great ones that I miss.
Yeah.
That are just not there anymore. And even though some of the things they put in are great and wonderful, I still, if I could pick between Test Track or the original World of Motion, I would pick World of Motion hands down over Test Track.
Right.
So, I mean...
Right. I think I would do the same. I never got to see it, but I still would pick it. I would definitely pick Horizons over Mission Space, too. So. Yeah,
and I would pick the original Journey into Imagination.
Definitely.
What's there now,
Yes.
but I don't think anybody would argue with that.
Yes.
So anyway, that's our little tour of Epcot. So on the next show, I guess we'll be talking about Hollywood Studios. And I don't have that much to say about Hollywood Studios, so I think we might also talk a little bit about my experience staying in the hotel, or I stayed at the All-Star Movies Resort. So I had never stayed on Disney property before. And so I'll talk about how I felt about that a little bit to kind of fill in the gaps of the next episode. And then we'll do one final one on Animal Kingdom. And I had never been to Animal Kingdom before, and I have a lot to say about Animal Kingdom, so we'll talk about that. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the roosters cock-a-doodle-doo. With the cows and the chickens, they all sound like the dickens when I hear my little